So the forum is going to consist of two parts. Part one will be questions from Ryan and I. Part two allows for written questions from the audience. We're trying to wrap up within an hour. We'll see if we can do that. I'm going to serve as the facilitator of the exchange between all participants. There's going to be no opening statement by the candidates. However, they'll each have 90 seconds available at the end of the forum for closing comments. The format is designed to encourage an interactive discussion between the candidates and panelists. This is a little different than past debates. We're trying to give it a little more dialogue between the candidates, open that up a little bit. Amongst other things, the facilitator's role is to ensure that all candidates have a reasonably equitable opportunity to speak to all the questions and responses by the others. We're going to pose directed questions to each candidate in order determined by us. The candidate to whom the question is first posed is given about 2 minutes for a response, and the other candidates comment and interact with each other on the topic in a respectful and dignified manner. Underline there. The facilitator will determine when a suitable amount of time has been reasonably devoted to each question or topic and to each participant. Then the next panelist will ask another question and we'll go on from there. This segment is supposed to be about 40 minutes, and then we're going to go on to audience questions. Audience questions may be submitted in writing. You can just hand them up to us if that works for you. Written question form will be provided. I think Kathy has them up at the front if you need them. We're going to select a candidate. We're going to go through them during a little 5-minute break after this first part and pick what we think are the best questions. And again, we're going to try to keep it equitable and fair. So that being said, we'll get right into it. Ryan, let's start it off with you. We're going to start with some questions on wastewater and nitrogen mitigation.
For well over a decade, the selectmen have gathered research and developed reports to address the specific wastewater issues facing Mashpee. We're going to start with Bob Bono. From those reports, which areas of Mashpee do you believe need to be addressed first, and what type of methods for nitrogen removal do you believe are most promising?
You know, when we talk about wastewater, this isn't something new. They're being kicked around for years and years and years. And everybody doesn't want a sewer plant next to them. But one person has lived here 40 years and they want to know why we have to do anything. And another person, you know, is talking about our days are going to be destroyed in the next year or two unless we make a decision. So I think a lot of the issues with the town, there have been forums, many workshops. They've been kicking this around for years and years and years. Primarily, I'm going to focus on, when I get elected selectman, I'm going to focus basically on, I don't want to lay this burden on the taxpayer that I've seen other areas of the Cape. Let's come up with ideas that are not going to put the burden on the taxpayer. Let's find a way to minimize this. Is it necessary? Yes. Is it going to be expensive? Yes. There's all different ways to do this. But let's look at this nationally, regionally, and then get, what do these other cities and towns, municipalities do to solve this issue? Well, some of them have done it, and then the voters get hit with an assessment of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per property, and I'm in real estate. That property value will go down the drain. Nobody wants to pay that assessment. So my primary goal, no matter what we do with this, is how about we can get the burden off the taxpayers and come up with creative new ways to fund whichever way we're going to go with this. And I'm all about, let's get it done. This has been going on for years and years and years and years. And it's time to take action.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right in there. If you're not going to put it on the taxpayers' shoulders, you know, who's going to pay for it?
Okay, there's plenty of, basically when you think about it, when someone buys a business, they earn money by selling a product or a service. Government can only raise taxes, can't they? But what about doing bold ideas on how to raise income? I'm even going so far as to advocate. You know, someone said to me the other day, I've talked to hundreds of voters in the last couple of weeks, and You know, they talk about, what about federal money? What about state money? Well, that's been there for years and years and years. Why doesn't the town go out and maybe hire a person just to work with grants? So we have to pay them on a part-time basis because, let's say the town officials now don't have enough time to work themselves. Why haven't we done something with the state up to this point? We need someone to focus on that. And I'm all for putting the money out to hire someone. They can bring in millions and millions of dollars of state and local funding if we just have somebody concentrate on it. Okay, that's one area. Another area is, how about?
I'm gonna cut you off there, we've kind of gone over your time limit here, but moving on to Alana.
Okay.
Well, I think the question was, you know, there are certain aspects of this plan, the sewer commission's been working on for 20 years. They've kind of given their opinion of what should go first. And I think there's been some pushback by some residents that live near this wastewater facility, proposed action path. Do you think the town should go forward with this action path project or wait a little longer?
I think between now and May town meeting, we'll know if the base might be a feasible option because the military is deciding on which applicant is going to get their bid at the end of this month. So if it's not feasible, then yes, I'm in favor of moving forward with the plan for next town meeting. However, if it is feasible, then I would like to see those cost comparisons and maybe a time frame of when it could come about.
Okay. Any follow-up to that?
No.
Okay, Mike, I'll jump in with you. Selectmen, I know I've spoken with you about this before, quote unquote, kick the cans down the road a little bit with wastewater. What would you do differently if you were a selectman, you know, maybe in this recent kind of debate between Joint Base, Cape Cod, and what's going on at Action Path? How would you do that differently?
The plan's been in place for several years. The cost of the plan has been pretty much outlined. The finance group in town did their own analysis. It was flawed, but they put some big dollars on the table. The answer to our issues is clear. We have to fix the Mashpee River Providence Bay. We know that the worst place is the first place to start. I talked to the selectmen about why they didn't try to put the wastewater in plant inside a transfer station. You know, put it in there so you can make it all fit, which is something they had not talked about before, but they're thinking about now. I think you have to go forward. The thing the selectmen haven't done, and I don't know why, is that they haven't put financing together so that they can come to the voters and say, this is what it's going to cost to get phase one done. Phase one has to be done. No one questions that. But taking some money from CPC, because we've spent a lot of money with CPC already on a percentage basis, taking a little bit of money from the rental tax. Both of these things are money coming into the town. There's going to be forgiveness, don't know what that's going to be, but at the end of the day, the dollar figure that was banted about was $500 per home per year for something like 20 years. That's not even close to what the dollar figure could be. It could be as little as $100. If they did their job getting the financing information done at this point, they would have been doing something for October. Now, they're going to go forward with the financing discussion. Put some dollars together. They know generally how much they get from CPC. They know generally what they're going to get from the rental tax, because the state has some of the numbers. And when you put the numbers together, getting phase one done is a reasonable thing to do, and it's not going to be on the backs of the taxpayers. It'll be taken, a big percentage of it will be taken by other means. But they got to do it, and they should do it now.
Okay. And David, same question for you. I know you've advocated for cleaning up the rivers around town. Well, how would you do it differently? The selectmen have had a difficult time getting it to the voters. How would you bring it to them?
I think the meetings that they started having, where they're discussing it openly, bringing in people that are going through the process in other towns, that's a good start. We have to educate the general public as to, you know, what's going on, where the nitrogen, how the rivers are affected, so they better understand the condition of the rivers and where they're at. They've identified the problem areas. I don't know if anybody else has actually walked in the Mashpee River or the Quashnet River, but when you walk down those rivers, there's muck that's being built up over the years that's so thick, some areas are difficult to walk through. It's almost like quicksand. Now, these are problem areas that it's crystal clear, I think for a long time we've known where the problem areas, Santuit Pond and the whole river corridor all the way up to Shoestring, and the Mashpee River, all the way down to Papaneset and Aquay. Those are problem areas, Quashnet as well. Along the river corridors are the most critical, I feel. Around the lakes, that's another area that is direct effects. And those have to be phased out. And which one is most critical, that I'm not exactly sure, but immediately along the corridors.
Okay. Good. And I guess I'll take a question on the opiates here. We're gonna dive into what's been a tragic opiate addiction. Something like 30 Mashpee residents died from 2012 to 2017 from overdoses. Do you think local taxes should go to combat it? And I'm talking state taxes raised here in Mashpee. Do you think that should go, and this is for Alana, sorry. Should that go to combating opioid epidemics? And if so, where specifically?
Yes, I do believe so. I mean, my generation is definitely experiencing this a lot. I've known more people from high school who have died than who have gotten married in my friend group. So I do think that funds should be going towards it, but I think it should be going towards prevention, because I can tell you firsthand that the DARE programs when I was in school actually prevented me from trying some of those substances later on in life. The things that they taught us about what could happen, bringing in people who have suffered and now teach about it, was invaluable for me. So I am definitely in favor of more prevention education.
I don't know, that's going but okay, so I guess getting kind of into specifics, you're saying kind of prevention programs
Yes.
in school.
For sure.
Does anyone know what's going on? I guess we'll turn over to Mike now that I think it seems to be okay. Mike, I know you've been on the finance committee and have advocated for keeping taxes down, as I think a lot of people would advocate for. But when we come to this heroin epidemic, do you see local funds going to that?
It has to go through it. I mean, they decided years ago with Mashpee Care, I think this drop-in right now is a great opportunity for people to go in and talk about problems that they have. It brings attention to a lot of people who don't understand what's going on. Many people probably don't really see the problem because it may not impact them personally. But yeah, we have opportunities. Marijuana has been approved, recreational marijuana has been approved. There's money coming to the town. There's no reason why that money should be put exactly where it belongs, and it's for treatment. Kiwanis gets involved in trying to help the kids out, the Boys and Girls Club get involved. There's a lot of people involved. I think it would be smart, again, from a Board of Selectmen perspective, if you could garner all these forces together, you could put a lot of money to the task. But now it's done on a piecemeal basis, and I think it's working on a piecemeal basis, but we still have too many problems.
Do you have, if you do say take money from marijuana revenue, do you have anything specific maybe that money could go towards?
Well, education is always at the top of the list, because I think it's important for people to understand how to handle it, how to deal with it, what it's all about, why it happens, perhaps if you can. Treatment is obviously necessary. People here probably I've got an Narcan treatment myself, just so I know what it's all about, how to use it if I had to use it, because at any given time you could be in a situation where something's happening, you may not even know what's happening. So I think that education, treatment, both side by side, but education and treatment are very, very necessary. I go right after those two.
Okay. And David, same question for you. Are you in favor of kind of using taxpayer money here in Mashpee for maybe specific programs in town?
The problem needs to be addressed. Some of the tax money should go towards it. Tax revenue from marijuana sales should contribute to it as well. But I would agree that education at a young age is critical to keep the kids off of getting on drugs, because once they get on drugs, it's very difficult to get them off. Some of these problems are lifelong problems, and people struggle with it. You have to hit rock bottom and want to change for yourself. You can't just throw money at the problem as a user that's actively using. Prevention at a young age would be your starting point, but then you also need to give the support system to the people that are actively trying to get off. And a lot of times, once they leave the treatment, they don't have follow-up support once they get out. And sometimes they just need that second chance and help getting a job or something positive in their life to trigger them to maintain being successful and staying clean. So I think on both far ends, bookends of the problem is where you need to focus your attention.
And Bob, question for you, saying, would you spend taxpayer money kind of trying to help this problem?
Yes, I would, if we have the money to allocate to it, if we can find a way to have the funds. Basically, there's been studies done on this literally all over the country. And it's been found that rather than the government or municipality trying to handle this and throw more money to it, that they get far better results with private groups like church groups or family interaction groups and things like this. So yes, the kids have to be taught from a young age, but as far as allocating more and more funds, I think the person we have to ask is the people that are enforcing it. What do they feel? I mean, the town spends a lot of money on talent, whether it's the police department, the fire department, and those people are great at doing their job, the health department. Why don't we go to these people and find out, number one, where they're coming from with this issue, what they figure would be the most effective programs, and number two, we got to get down to a more basic level, because there's been studies done, it's been proven that the stronger the family environment, or even, like I said, a church group, whatever your faith, your religion is, they're far more successful at dealing with the drug situation than, taking people and putting them in jail or doing things like this. So, am I in favor of throwing more money at it? Yes, because we have a big problem with that. Okay.
All right, Ryan, you want to ask the next question? I guess we're going to start with Mike.
Sure. This question actually comes from a panel member who could not be here today. She is Linda Steele. She is the president of the Chamber of Commerce and a manager at Cape Cod 5, a local business in Mashpee. She unfortunately could not make it tonight because she was sick, but her question, as she wrote it, reads, as the manager of a local business in Mashpee, I am finding it more and more difficult to fill open positions. In fact, I have had an open position for 10 months, which is a first for my 25 years working in Mashpee. There are many other businesses in town that are also facing difficulties filling job openings. I'm finding that people who are a part of the workforce cannot find affordable housing in Mashpee. Consequently, they are leaving the Cape. What would your solution to the lack of affordable housing in Mashpee area be?
Well, the simple answer is more affordable housing, but it's not that simple. I mean, we were at 4%, something like 8 or 9 years ago. We're at 5% now, 300 some odd units. We have to find a way to get more. Well, one of the ways that they're doing it now, we're selecting going forward with approving accessory apartments, which they had not done for years before, even though it was discussed, which allowed people to do a couple things. They could have a one-bedroom or an extension of their homes or a garage type of thing within their home area that they can allow to offer for less money, smaller amount of money. It works for them, a little bit more revenue. It works for those that need housing because they can find something that is less expensive. And it's not as though you're owning a home and you have to pay all the additional taxes and everything. You're basically almost renting an apartment. And as an accessory apartment, there'll be some limits on the cost of the accessory apartment. The other thing is, of course, expansion. Everybody talks about the town growing so fast. Well, they did back in the 90s, they grow fast. But you have Mashpee Commons who can, with some controlled growth, and working with the planning board, coming up with a solution, will build more housing, and within that additional housing will be more affordable housing. The Affordable Housing Trust, which has been really kind of regenerated, which is the selectmen, we're putting $100,000 on the warrant this year to buy a piece of property that we can use as a trust for affordable housing. So, and working with Habitat to make sure that we approve the money they need to build more Habitat. So if you put it all together, we're still not gonna make it real fast. But when you have accessible housing, you add Habitat, you add the Affordable Housing Trust, you add Mashpee Commons with will control growth, you're starting to dig into that need. 5%, the state would like us to be 10%, we're not even halfway there.
David?
I agree that the younger people are moving away at a rapid rate. It's not a unique problem to Mashpee, it's across the Cape in general. And I think we do need to incentivize accessory dwelling units. Possibilities may be, identifying properties, owners that have 2 acres or more, and encourage them to build accessory dwelling units on their property that could be 1 or 2 bedroom properties. Maybe possibly working out some sort of model similar to Habitat for Humanity, where you have shared resources to construct them, and there's tax credit offsets that go along with that to try to incentivize the program. I don't think we can wait to put. Nobody wants to build the affordable housing properties because they can make more money building McMansions and things. So we need to look at how to incentivize the accessory dwelling units for 1 and 2 bedroom, single, not so much, families need houses as well, but also the 1 person, 1 2 bedroom apartments are greatly needed. That would be one way. The other one would be try to use some of the tax-taken lands and identify areas where we could build more family units and encourage kind of 40B style housing in that area as well.
Bob, in your business and
I think in the real estate field, I've actually been dealing with this for over 20 years. I want to give you an example. I'll go way back farther than 20 years. A friend of mine found an article from the early 1900s. They were talking about what are the issues on Cape Cod. And they were talking about overcrowding. There were too many buggies on the street. But they were talking about people can't afford to live on Cape Cod. So I'm out there talking to all these people, and they're telling me, what I earn or what I make, I can't afford to live on the Cape. We have all the tools in place. And there's some people don't want to do studies and this and that. They have something called the amnesty program. Okay? There are a lot of towns implement. And people say, well, we got to make sure that, it isn't going to cause more crowding or more noise. No, that's been in place for years. Where anyone owns a single-family house, they should be able to take that apart, meet the standards of the inspectors, like the Board of Health, and it's not going to cause overcrowding because they don't add a bedroom to the property. Let's say it's a 3-bedroom property. They'll allow 1 of the 3 bedrooms to be set aside as an accessory apartment. Nobody really promotes this. And one of the biggest problems is have jobs on Cape Cod. Good jobs, make a living. So the other thing is we get a source of income with a single family homeowner, and I think we should get out of their, stop trying to control them. Somebody owns a single family house. They gotta meet the guidelines for safety in the fire department, and that's already, to do this, you already have inspections in place, you already have controls in place. But a lot of people don't even know this. They figure because they're zoned on a single family house, they can't do anything. But the issues aren't any different than they were early 1900s. Can't afford to live on Cape Cod, no one can make a decent income.
Yeah. A lot of turn to you. I think a lot of people have been talking about accessory apartments and opening that up. Is that something you could see as potential in town?
Absolutely. I've been an ADU advocate for a very long time, and I want to clear something up that Mike said. We do have an ADU bylaw right now, however, it's not by right, so it's more of a process for owners to get one. They have to go through the ZBA, which is often costly, requires a lawyer, requires a hearing, so it really turns homeowners away. Right now, what the proposed warrant article is adjusting the ADU bylaw to make it by right. So as long as the homeowner meets all property standards, wastewater, lot size, then they are allowed to put it on their house and also have it be detached from their house as long as it meets the setback limits. Yes. So
Essentially you're saying make it easier for homeowners
to incentivize them to actually do it, because how it is right now is not an easy process versus how they're wording to change it is very responsible, and it's also incentivizing current homeowners to take advantage of setting up an ADU. But I also want to touch on, there's a lot of other options too that, I mean, my generation, we don't have the ability to buy a quarter acre here in Mashpee, go shake a hand at a bank and get a construction loan. A lot of regulations have changed, so we have to look, and I don't see them changing anytime soon. So we have to look into more alternative housing options, and I think mixed-use zoning is another great option, as well as ADUs, and I really hope people vote for that at town meeting.
Right, this I'll ask, might be our final question, maybe not. Then start with David here. Annually, school budgets come up, and it seems like repeatedly the town is kind of saying, why don't you spend a little bit less? I'm interested, as a selectman, you have some authority of town manager to say, well, maybe let the school spend a little bit more. But at the same time, you have people saying, spend less money. I'm interested in hearing where you would stand in terms of school budgeting. Do you give the schools what they want, or do you continually kind of say, no?
Well, these are our future, and I don't know that I would agree to take money from that program first unless it's a kind of last resort. You've taken money from other places first. I wouldn't start with the school. I think you need to sometimes just look at how you're spending the money and maybe realign where that money's being spent within the budget. I would try and do that first, rather than just attacking it and taking money away. With technology and things, trimming expenses with reductions in paper and all that sort of thing needs to be looked at and explored. Providing kids with the technology so that they can learn at home and keep up with the pace of the technology advancing. Those kind of tools will enable the children to do better in learning and making it fun and engaged. And that costs money, so I wouldn't agree with reducing money at the school level.
Well, we'll go to you. I think everyone likes to say they're fiscally conservative, but when it comes to schools, it seems to be an annual debate about where to.
Schools, you're asking me to
Yeah.
comment on school budget? I think right now, our school budget is adequate. Basically, we gotta look at all the issues on an independent basis, what we're spending per child for education, but I think everything should be results-based. Because there's been a lot of talk all over the nation about, how much we're gonna spend on every community, how much we're gonna spend on education. But we've gotta have a measurable way that if we're spending that money, is it doing good for our students or not? Where there's gonna be testing and all this on, scores, and is it gonna benefit the students, benefit the taxpayers, and benefit the town to increase that budget? And if we do, we gotta have a way to measure the results.
Yeah, I guess I'll pose the question this way. I guess I think every year it seems like salaries are set to go up every year by 3% or the budget goes up, that's.
I'm sorry, I expect what to go?
Salaries, it seems like the school budget just automatically goes up, and I know maybe it's a little, not that simple, but.
I'm trying to do some research on this, and I was talking to the town clerk, and I asked her what her priority was. And she said to me, I'm probably operating on the same budget I was operating on 10 or 20 years ago when the town had half the population. So we got double the work and the need for more staff, but we don't, you know, we're doing a lot more work and we haven't gained a penny on the budget. So I think you gotta measure everything in different parameters, like where should we spend the money? Should the budget go up every year? What are we getting in return for the budget increase as a taxpayer? There's gonna be measurable ways. I'm a businessman, so you can't spend more than you make. So I'm all about, yeah, let's spend money on everything, but let's have it first.
We could raise taxes.
Let's have the money first. We gotta have a way to have the income before we can spend it.
Turn to Alana, I'll offer this question this way, with wastewater coming through, we're talking maybe $250 million. Our school budget's gonna continue, are you gonna continue to give them more money, or, I guess, where would you stand on that?
On the school budget, well, I first want to commend Mashpee school system. My daughter's in the pre-K program, and it's wonderful. There's a lot of great teachers, and I know for a fact they earn every cent they make. But what concerns me is the consistent decrease in enrollment versus the consistent increase in the budget. So I wouldn't be open to just saying, yeah, do what you want, here's the blank check. I would obviously push back a little bit on that, because that is my biggest concern. If you have a consistent decrease in enrollment in students, but still an increase in budget, I'd like to kind of pull back the reins a little bit there.
All right. Mike, you got it?
Well, I think you have to look at the big picture. The school budget's about 50% of the town budget, so that's where you start. $20+ million. And if we all agree that the future is our children, then we need to spend the appropriate amount of money. The Massachusetts website, education website, provides data that I think whenever you're doing anything from a financial perspective, you should collect your information. It gives you the graduation rates, the dropout rates, the number of students per teacher ratios, the average student salaries. It gives you a laundry list of things that you can at least look at from a comparison purposes. And one of the things we need to make sure we get a good education. So let's start with making sure that they have a good education. I agree with Dave. Technology has been a big factor and a big change in the future. Some of that technology could translate into perhaps a smaller number of teachers, maybe not, but that's something you need to look at. If we go back to, you talk about education, it doesn't fall too far from affordable housing. If you can't get affordable housing where teachers can live on the Cape, you gotta pay them more money to get them on the Cape. You have to pay them more money to keep them on the Cape. So it all interlocks with each other. Years ago, there was when we looked at the budgets for the school, there were a lot of things that were encumbered year after year after year, not spent near the end of the year, money sitting in the coffers it was encumbered. And once we worked with the school committee and worked through the process, we found out that there was a substantial amount of money that could be brought back to the town, which it didn't change the end result of the effort by the school teachers. It reduced the salary, not the salary, but the budget a little bit. So I think you look at everything with the mindset that says we want to have good education. The kids are going to be our future. Let's make sure it happens. Also, the town high school, now I think a high school and a middle school may be shared in one shared space. Years ago, everybody had a family. There was no school in Mashpee. We had enough students to create a school in Mashpee. You need to keep looking at it because the population of the schools have gone down over the last many years. At some point, you say, doing all the buildings. So it's not as simple as looking at the school budget. If you start with the process, you want the kids to learn and live and stay along with your teachers, that's where you start. But you look at all the other stuff to help you modify your end result.
Go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to go through some questions and pick what we think are the best.
If you have not delivered your questions, you should do that.
Yeah. All right, so we went through these and we picked what we thought were equitable, tried to give one to each candidate. I'll start with this one. This is from Thomas Caston for Mr. Whedon. Your position has consistently been against expansion of Mashpee Commons and other areas in town. Please explain.
Thank you for the question. I'm not so much against expansion. I just think that as a priority, I think it's lower on, it should be lower on our priority list. I think we need to address our wastewater issues. We've been developing at a rapid pace for a very long time, and our infrastructure hasn't kept up with that development. So we need to shift our focus and not being driven so much by developers and focus on our most prized resources, that of the environment. And, you know, there's a new initiative that's sweeping the Cape and all of Massachusetts with a blue economy, where, you know, you promote more economics that focus on water-related development projects and such. And, you know, if that's the way we're going as a region, then we don't want to get left behind with the only rivers and estuaries that are contaminated on Cape. So,
It sounds like you're kind of splitting the hairs, where there's maybe a fine line between creating affordable housing, as has been discussed, and maybe not too much expansion. Is there a way to do that?
correct, I'm not opposed to expanding. I mean, you know, they own the property, I understand that, you know. I think it's more discussion around the zoning changes that are proposed and the high density build out between two rivers that are currently labeled as, you know, being in a critical state of decline. So where does your interest lie? Is it on the rivers, or is it on the expansion of the commons with unrestricted height variances? You know, that, and when do you have that conversation? I don't know that you should have that conversation now if those problems are, you know, we're at a critical tipping point with the rivers. You know, so I'm not totally opposed to the commons. I like the commons the way it is right now, you know, and I think it's a good size. I don't know that it needs to expand, you know, exponentially to the other 2/3 of the property that they own. That's kind of my concern, and you know, I think it needs to be more discussion around that and how it's done, when it's done. I just don't think that now is the proper time.
Okay. Thanks for that question, Thomas. I'm gonna go, Bob, there was no direct questions for you, so this one was from Joan Tavares Vermont. It was directed at 3 candidates, but I'm gonna just do you. If elected, what are your plans to celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day in October?
What are my plans to do what?
To celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day in October.
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Indigenous Peoples' Day. Okay. I think the real key to anything is, I wear hearing aids, so the real key is to be able to build a coalition with everyone involved and everyone getting benefits. Not be segregating people like we put the tribe over here, we put the business people over here. And we need people that can build coalition between everybody and have everybody involved. And study those issues on a fair and equitable basis, because you know what? The town of Mashpee is going to get a lot further when we're inclusive, when we include everybody.
I think the question was more, how are you personally going to celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day, which I think the town at town meeting decided to name a national, or excuse me, a local holiday. Do you have any specific
If I'm
plans?
elected, I would definitely attend any celebrations. Anybody would be running. If I'm not elected, I'll probably stay home and watch the football game.
All right, Mike, this is a question for you. Mashpee Commons said they absolutely could not build affordable housing. I think that they did say, what they did say, I believe, is that maybe not capital A affordable housing, but what they're saying is maybe with more buildings, there will be cheaper houses, places to live, as there's more, less demand, I guess. If you're, I think it was if the selectmen, if you're elected selectman, you'll be negotiating on behalf of the town with the Cape Cod Commission and Mashpee Commons. I think really the question is, what would you advocate for in those negotiations?
Well, I guess the first thing we have to be whether anybody on the selectmen board would be part of the negotiating team, because at this point it's the planning board and not the selectmen.
Well, I think the planning board, though, does have to pass any negotiations that they make with the commission, so ultimately it's the
It's not the end of
selectmen's
their
power.
plan, the ultimate plan. I think that, we talked about growth, and I think the word controlled growth is kind of maybe, is not well defined. The Commons has been a partner with Mashpee for many, many years. They've done a very good job, I think most people would agree, in building something that is a destination people enjoy going to. They have property, they have growth plans. They've reached out to the Cape Cod Commission and the planning board, and agreed to have a tri-party discussion about how they can work together and allow for some controlled expansion. If they can get some expansion agreed to by the town, then with that expansion will come additional housing. And I think the question becomes, it can't be 5, 6, 7-story buildings. There's gotta be some control. But with the land they have available, and they're willing to provide in return for opportunities to grow, land that can be put into conservation, into perpetuity, so everybody wins. But we can't sit still and not go forward. Right now, they've been sitting still with no agreement. They've met the people in town, they've had meeting after meeting after meeting. What would you like? Not necessarily the Board of Selectmen, not necessarily the planning board, but the residents, those that use Mashpee Commons. They talk about traffic, they talk about congestion. Well, even if you didn't have the commons, and you're gonna have congestion on Cape Cod in the summertime because everybody comes down here as a destination. So somehow in a controlled manner, I don't have all of the answers, but there are people behind it. You got technical people behind the building, you got plans that have been put in place, modified many, many, many times over, and they're in that mix of plans that everybody has. There's opportunity to expand enough to get some more affordable housing. Numbers wise, I don't know the exact number, but more than we have today.
Okay. And then last question here for Alana. Would you support Mashpee becoming a sanctuary town?
Absolutely not.
Would you like to explain why not?
I think that's an incentive for people to go around the laws that we have in place and would encourage people to go against the laws that are currently here in our country. So no, I would not be in favor of that.
Fair enough. I guess now we're gonna have let each candidate have their minute and a half closing remarks, and I'll spin my pin and see who goes first. Bob, we'll go with you, and then we'll go with this.
Basically, I think a lot of times we lose the focus. If I'm elected, or when I'm elected, I will, number one, what about how do you help the retiree on a fixed income that's lived here for 30 or 40 years and can't even afford to live in the house they've lived in their whole life? What about the young mother with a couple of kids that is going to be homeless because she doesn't have enough money to be able to live on a Cape Cod? What about the young professional who, has gone to college, got a degree, and expects to have a good paying job, and he has to travel 1.5 hours to 2 hours every day to go to work because he tells me he can't find a good paying job on Cape Cod? These are the issues we gotta deal with. The wastewater, yes, we know that's gonna happen, and it has to happen. I think every voter I've talked to has agreed that, something's gonna be done. We gotta get off our duff, we gotta have someone that can build a consensus, get everybody together, all the different avenues of this, and actually do something. And I think the biggest way is to find ways to develop sources of income for the town. One of my businesses is in the hospitality business. I think it's kind of interesting to think. If you take Falmouth has downtown Falmouth, Hyannis has downtown Hyannis. When I'm on Cape, and I do a lot of business on Cape, and you talk about Mashpee, the first thing people talk about is, the commons. All right? What do we have that's going to attract business or people here? Yes, we need restraint. But to restrict that, Let's make Mashpee the community that people want to come to and live here and be able to make a good living and be able to raise their children here without the fear of being homeless or not being able to make an adequate wage. And that's what I'm all
Go ahead. Alana?
Well, first I want to thank you guys, our panelists, and thank the Chamber of Commerce and Mashpee Library for hosting this debate. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming out and hearing what we have to say. I am here because I really believe that the Board of Selectmen can use the perspective of someone who's living in the community, who happens to be a young adult and is currently raising young children here in town. Mike Richardson actually said it best in a 2013 Wicked Local article. Get young people involved with the town. This town will be better in the future because they will be involved in their own future. If there's anything I want to get across tonight, it is that I am not here to represent a business interest, one single group of people, one single community. I've said it before, and I'm here because I genuinely want to serve our community. I have the means, the time, and the willingness to be a representative of my generation and contribute what I have. I want you to consider voting for me on October 1st, and I'm also holding another meet and greet this coming Sunday if you're interested in attending at the Polar Cave from 4:30 to 5:30. Thank you.
Take it away, Mike.
Well, I guess we talked about a lot of things, but when it comes down to the town, we're a town of great diversity. We're a town that is struggling with keeping younger people on Cape. So we talked ad nauseum about affordable housing. We just have to actually do something about it. The trust is back in place, so we can start working on that. Accessory apartments, which we hopefully passed at town meeting, will take care of that. As far as wastewater, I mean, you get tired of talking about it and not doing anything. We have the plan. We have not all the money yet, but we have some financing discussion going on. I'm convinced, talking to the Board of Selectmen that exists today, and they know it. They could have done a little more, but there is ways to look at the solution. Fix the wastewater, get some accessory buildings for people to live in down here, and celebrate the culture that we have. And this is a great place to live. We just have to work together to make it work for everybody. Doesn't happen overnight. Mashpee Commons, it's been a bone of contention in many, many years as I've been here. It's a great place to go. Let's just make it a great place to go by giving them a little opportunity to grow. If they grow, more businesses come in, more money comes into the town, more housing gets built, and everybody is happy about it. So my plan is just, I think Elena said it too, and Dave said it, let's dig in and start doing something. We've been talking about it too much for too long. My hair's gray. I want to move forward, I lose any more hair.
Take it away.
Yeah, so culturally, I have to say that, as a Mashpee Wampanoag person, we're connected to our surrounding environment and the natural environment around us. And, when I hear of the rivers being in the state that they are, it really troubles me and concerns me, not only for myself, but for my future generations. And I feel obligated, as we consider ourselves stewards of the land. And I just feel like I have to get involved. I'm not afraid of work. I don't mind rolling my sleeves up and engaging and getting involved and trying to be a part of the solution. Having background with architecture and such, they teach us, they taught us to think outside of the box and solve people's problems. And that's my approach to life, and to work together towards a common problem and work towards solving that problem, not dwelling on the problem itself too much. But with that, I ask for your vote on October 1st to offer the town a bit of diversity, a little bit of change to the current board. As a representative, I care deeply about Mashpee. I think that's apparent with all that I try to do, and I ask for your vote on October 1st.
Thanks everyone for coming. The election is October 1st at Christ the King Church.